Tonight, we're going to step away from the headlines, the talking points, and the political theater, and look at what is actually happening to the global economy right now. Because while most Americans are hearing about tariffs in fragments, a number here, a threat there, something much bigger is unfolding behind closed doors in capitals across Europe, Asia, and Latin America. As of early 2026, the United States has raised its average tariff rate from roughly 2.5% just 2 years ago to nearly 17% today. That puts America at its highest trade barrier level since the early 1930s. And this time, the world isn't responding quietly. Instead, allies and rivals alike are coordinating, hedging, and in some cases, openly pushing back against Washington in ways we haven't seen in generations. This is not about ideology. It's not about left versus right. It's about economic survival. And the consequences are already landing in American households. When Donald Trump returned to the White House in January 2025, he didn't tweak trade policy. He detonated it. Within weeks, the administration invoked emergency economic powers to justify sweeping tariffs across the global economy. 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, escalating tariffs on China peaking above 100% in some categories, a universal 10% tariff on nearly all imports, global steel and aluminum tariffs, country-by-country reciprocal tariffs tied to trade deficits. This was not targeted protectionism. It was systemic disruption. And for the first time since World War II, the United States openly traded trade not as a stabilizing force, but as a weapon. Here's what rarely gets said clearly. Tariffs are not paid by foreign countries. They are paid by American importers, American companies, and ultimately American consumers. In 2025, economists estimate the average U.S. household paid roughly $1,000 more because of tariffs. In 2026, that number is projected to rise closer to $1,300 per household. That's not abstract. That's higher grocery bills, higher energy costs, more expensive cars, appliances, and construction materials. And beyond prices, there's something even more damaging: uncertainty. Companies don't invest when rules change every month. Factories don't expand when supply chains can collapse overnight. Hiring freezes when executives can't predict costs 6 months ahead. The chaos itself becomes an economic tax. This unpredictability isn't accidental. Tariffs are announced, delayed, re-announced, partially exempted, then reimposed. Automobiles, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, movies, technology. Some threats materialize, others vanish, but the effect is the same. Countries and corporations learn that stability only comes by cutting deals directly with Washington, on Washington's terms. This creates leverage, but it also destroys trust. And globally, trust is currency. Nowhere is this more visible than in Europe. In January 2026, 8 core NATO allies, including Germany, France, the UK, and Nordic states, issued a rare joint statement condemning U.S. tariff threats tied to Greenland. Yes, tariffs linked to territorial demands on Allied land. That statement wasn't diplomatic routine. It was a warning. Behind the scenes, the European Union began preparing its anti-coercion instrument, a legal mechanism allowing Europe to retaliate economically against countries that use trade as political blackmail. This tool has never been used. Until now, it was considered unthinkable. That's how serious this has become. Canada and Mexico have been caught in a constant cycle of threats, exemptions, and reversals. Even under USMCA, a deal negotiated by Trump himself, tariffs reappeared. Canada prepared retaliatory tariffs. Mexico quietly restructured its trade strategy. Rather than mirror aggression, Mexico targeted China, raised selective tariffs, and negotiated carve-outs. By late 2025, over 80% of U.S.-Canada and U.S.-Mexico trade technically remained tariff-free, but the remaining portion hit politically sensitive industries, and the threat of expansion never disappeared. The assumption in Washington was simple. If tariffs are high enough, China will fold. That didn't happen. China redirected exports, upgraded manufacturing, and absorbed the shock. By late 2025, China's global trade surplus passed $1 trillion. Tariffs peaked, then truces followed, not because America won, but because the costs became impossible to ignore. The trade war didn't end, it stabilized into a managed confrontation. India hedged, Brazil resisted, Southeast Asia absorbed diverted manufacturing. Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia became the quiet winners as supply chains rerouted around U.S.-China tariffs. America didn't reduce dependence on Asian manufacturing. It just changed which Asian countries benefited, and every shift weakened Washington's leverage a little more. Now, the most important battlefield isn't diplomatic, it's legal. Federal courts have already ruled that the administration exceeded its authority under emergency economic powers. The Supreme Court heard arguments in late 2025. A ruling is expected soon. If those tariffs fall, the entire framework collapses overnight. Billions in collected duties could be refunded, deals unravel, and the president's ability to weaponize trade at scale could end. World leaders are watching that decision closely. So are markets. This is the moment we're living in. Not a temporary trade dispute, not tough negotiations, but a fundamental stress test of the global order built after 1945. The question isn't whether the strategy is sustainable. It isn't. The real question is what breaks first: the courts, the economy, the political coalition behind it, or the international system itself. And when the dust settles, America will either emerge having reinforced the rules it once built, or having taught the world how to move on without them. That choice is unfolding right now. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening beyond the headlines, make sure to subscribe. And in the comments, tell me this. Do you think countries will maintain collective resistance to U.S. trade pressure? Or will they keep cutting individual deals and let the global system fracture? Because that answer may define the next generation of global power.